Welcome aboard everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have an update video here on XinFin XDC on the exchange. Before we go into the chart, we'll just cover a few topics, and also we'll just go into some elements that were picked up on a few comments in our last XDC video about some concerns that maybe XDC was a scam or something like this. And in relation to someone's YouTube channel, we'll go into that a bit more detail in a second, but I just want to touch up on a couple of updates here that have happened quite recently. So we've had this Consortia 21 event. In particular, great interest from my side is Andre Kasteman. So very much very experienced individual. Obviously has massive experience here with Swift, over 20 years. Massive in regards to corporate treasuries and trade finance. All these are great things that you want to see people like this at these kind of events. And he speaks very highly in the past and most recently as well about XinFin's capabilities in XDC, of course. So when you hear general consultants and particularly people of his magnitude talking about these kind of projects, it of course pricks up your ears a bit, in my opinion. Well, there's a lot of other people involved in this. Fulbright, of course, absolutely gigantic. I think there's loads of different people from all sorts of places across the world. World Trade Organization was absolutely phenomenal. WTO. So a lot of analysis, a lot of directors, CEOs. So this, I can imagine, is probably quite an expensive event to attend. And I've no doubt that even the nibbles being produced around, handed out by waiters, waitresses, and whatnot, were, I'm sure, quite a costly venture as well. But very much around supply chain, the mechanism of how blockchain and interoperability of these kind of aspects will help integrate with the finance world in the years to come. So a lot of fintech, crypto related people there for sure. So it's great to see obviously XinFin's XDC sort of partnership with this, in the sense that I think they had some elements of people attending this event in particular. There's a lot of talk, certainly in one of the most recent parts. So looking forward to seeing our own XinFin USA present alongside fellow industry leaders at the BCR consortia. So very cool that that's happened. It's quite tight-lipped in my opinion. There's not a lot of information coming out of that to the general public. And that kind of brings me on to my next point, guys, because in our previous video, there's a lot of concern based on a couple of other YouTubers, perhaps opinions and thoughts around XDC being potentially a scam, and some YouTubers are being interlaced with it, and this, that, and the other. And I thought, well, do you know what? Fair play to the people that are being vigilant. There's no harm in questioning. But what I would say is, don't come to the table with a load of, I wouldn't call it garbage, but just think about what you're saying before you put it online, right? Especially in this digital world, right? Because you get people jump on you left, right, and center. Have some substance behind why you think this. And if it's just because of one or two YouTube channels have said this versus the rest of the world, well, you kind of have to ask a few more questions than just putting things in comments, right? So I think it was around this Crypto Dynasty channel, which has basically gone off the radar completely. I think this might be the correct channel, but either way, from what I gathered, is that they're completely eradicated off social media, whether they've done that themselves or have been taken off by someone else. I don't know, but it seems that majority of their social platforms have completely disappeared. So it was around basically, these kind of guys saying that XDC is a scam and this, that, and the other. And I'm sort of like, well, how can you come to that judgment? Is that because you're fed up with the price? Is it, have you just gone and had an absolute Barney of a day, and you've gone online and thought these things? I don't really know. I always just have a general consensus, if you're angry about something, don't say things immediately. Reflect on them, think about them, and then conclude what you feel after that. It's worked so far in my life. Of course, sometimes emotion takes over, of course. So you can't just jump on the bandwagon and laugh at people. Some people have good days, bad days, whatever the situation was in this one. I don't quite know. But what I do know is that XDC is very much interlaced with the likes of Corda, and that was another question, by the way, about Corda's integration. Now, what I want to emphasize, and in my working environment as well, there's a lot of things that the public would generally not know. for confidential reasons, NDA reasons, and this, that, and the other. And there is an argument to say if something particularly aggressive comes out into the media, or something's found that is against your company, sometimes you would come out with PR statements and this, that, and the other. But let me put something clear here. When you're talking about a company's magnitude of like XinFin, and in this sort of massive institutional mechanism of banking and finance, right, where security and data privacy, confidentiality is extremely important, like it is in most sectors around the world, they don't have a job to appease us as retail investors. Okay, so you and I, I'm sure that hopefully welcome aboard onto the channel for people who are maybe massive investors and on higher levels than we are, of course. But for the general retail investor, there's a lot of public related projects, I would say, out there, whether they be blockchain, layered scalability projects, whatever they are, NFT related, etc., that have a consumer focus, because the tokenomics aspect and the staking reward programs and things like this help towards that, and the magnitude of more people doing that, of course, influences the development, etc., of chains and whatnot moving forward. However, there are some out there with blockchains which probably already have, to be fair, extreme institutional commitments financially into the projects, especially when you're talking about things on a worldwide scale of bridging interoperability. Same with Ripple. Ripple, I think, if you remember, years and years ago, opened up clearly that they maybe made a partial mistake to say that actually Ripple was never designed for the retail investor. It was designed for institutional level. So this is a similar principle with XinFin, but I just wanted to put people's minds at rest. Now, this isn't a gigantic amount of information, but this is at least a reference, which people were asking for, of XinFin's relation to Corda. Well, there was information directly on the XinFin website previously, but they've now put that into a partner portal, and that's totally understandable to me, because in my world, like, you have like trade levels, pharmaceutical, government levels, and then you have the residential consumer levels, right? So there's a lot of things in the background that simply the public are not able to know, or for whatever reason. It's just that way. And as a partner, because you've invested or you have a substantial amount of money or interest in this, and particularly when you're talking about countries and institutional levels where we're talking about high-end banks, they're not going to just willy-nilly put information out on the World Wide Web for us all to read. So I wouldn't look too much into thinking things are scams, or there's no information about this or that. Just have a think, like, there was obviously things before. I definitely saw some documentation online, but they've clearly changed that now. And I understand that fully just from my experience and perspective. But here we go, the Corda network, which they talk about openly on the document. It's not massive, but it's around about the development, the coding aspects of using the Corda network, which is, of course, part of what Corda allow. And XinFin are essentially interoperability aspect, integrating with this, and of course trying to build this kind of like public framework for blockchain, in terms of public finance. Now, we know from CordaCon quite recently that they're looking for a private solution, their own potential stablecoin. Now, it's not possible yet to identify or know, other than speculate, whether XDC and XinFin is going to be part of that privatization element as well, because we know that XinFin is capable of the hybrid element in public and private, but we can only speculate at this point. So try, when you're doing investments and your own research, just try and look at the sources and know like the factual parts, know what you know. Like, it's really important. Don't just jump on people's opinions on Twitter who really do not have any idea. I don't have an idea fully. I know that Corda and XinFin are related in terms of what they're trying to do. That doesn't mean the partnership's full, complete, and definitely going ahead. It means they're working together, right? This could take years, it could take months, it could take days, whatever. We know that's been taken a while already. But we're talking about the gigantic infrastructure, the fourth industrial revolution of our finance, tokenomics, and blockchain technology coming to our world. This isn't something you just do overnight. You've got to talk about SWIFT systems for over 50, 60, 80 years, maybe even. You can't just click your fingers and expect that to just work. There's a lot of factors to this. So that's what I would just say as a recommendation: do full research. If you're unsure about something, then don't jump into it. rather than complain in the comments saying, oh, I invest in this, it's a scam because there's no answers, there's none of this, none of that. Well, do your research then and make a decision on that. Don't cry about it 6 months, 12 months down the line because it's not moving in a price point. I'll make that point quite clear, guys. Like Amazon with Bezos, in one of his interviews previously, he was always like, look, people are just so fixated on prices in the charts, and that he understood that. Like, obviously people trying to make money off the company, but in the back end, Amazon were making things happen internally. Some things were never announced. I know for a fact, through people I know, closely, of some of the projects that Amazon are working on. They're not public knowledge, and I'm not able to unfortunately say in this video because that will compromise some things. But there's things happening, and you won't hear that until it's actually launched, or you might hear a small rumor maybe a few weeks or a month before. So it's in every business's identity to protect certain knowledge and confidential matters. So I'm not fussed. I'm holding XDC. I will continue to accumulate because I believe in its project, irrespective of Corda. I know what XinFin's capable of. And you think it's a scam coin. Well, how come there's so much multi-millions of dollars invested in it across a multitude of different levels of investors' approaches to this, as well as all the work that they are doing? You can look at their social media. You won't find a lot on there on a regular basis like you do with community-driven projects. Because, at the end of the day, that's not what they're here for. They're not here to appease us with community and information. There's a multitude of blockchains, as we've kind of mentioned, like blockchains and technologies and projects, etc., that need the community drive. They need the engagement. XinFin don't need that. They've already got enough funding. They've got enough money. They've got enough awareness where it needs to be to accommodate the foreseeable future that they need to acquire to transform and develop their technology and the infrastructure in place to integrate with the existing financial system. So I'm not fussed about that. Of course we want to see more information come out of projects like XinFin, absolutely, but that's where you get to do your own research, the opportunity to check their website out, check the white papers, the documentation, and make your own assessment on that. Don't always make things based on social media. Of course, we use references of social media, but that's particularly in ones that have reference in community projects. We just go by what we believe we know. Never, make massive speculation or anything like that, because it can backfire. We've seen with some YouTube videos recently, or YouTube channels, just whether they've been shut down or as I said, removed themselves because they embarrassed themselves or something, then that's down to them. But just do your own research, and if you're going to make any comments or anything like that, have a substantial or substance rather to back up your theory or your thought. It's very good to have opinions. I absolutely love everyone's opinions. There are no rights and wrongs, but at least if you're going to make one, have some full-on justification about it. If you've done loads of research, well, what is that research? Because when I ask, by the way, if anyone if anyone puts a comment and I say, yeah, what research you done, then that's not me being funny. That's not me trying to put you on the spot kind of thing. I want to know, because what if it was a scam or something, and then you can immediately go, oh right, well, let's make a visual assumption of this, natural balanced opinion. Too many people these days just jump into an opinion and don't have any reason why they've said it or what they're doing this conversation for. So I'm pretty sure most of us are on the same page there, but I just want to wrap that kind of topic element up, and hopefully you've enjoyed this, a bit of a little more of a breakdown around what XinFin's kind of been up to in one way or another, and some events in the last couple of days. It's relation to Corda that we know of, and have kind of spoken about that in some element, and just a general emphasis around what we expect from these kind of institutional levels in a social media level. So all systems go for XDC in my opinion. And on that note, let's jump into the chart and see where we are with the price and everything, and hopefully you guys will have some extra thoughts on this in the comments below. So let's have a quick gander at this, guys. Smash that like button if you find the information interesting, and subscribe if you are new to the channel or you haven't done so already. Shame on you. We are accelerating to 3,000, guys. So a few observations, guys. on this chart. I want to make it clear that XDC has been making good moves over a period of time. We'll just go back here to the June, for example, floating around 5 cents. We're currently floating just over 10. And on some of these key areas along this sort of trend line, I just want to emphasize again, we've gone from that sort of 5 cents, 7 cents, around about 9 to 10 cents. And now we're floating on this or pittering around this 10-cent mark again. So for me, it's just really trying to activate the confirmation of this support mechanism around this 10-cent mark. And you can see here, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row of trying to force down to this 10.5 cent mark ish. So what it's showing you is that it's coming down, but there's obviously clearly a lot of very bullish people out there that are going, nope, we will just accumulate that. Thanks very much for the dip. We'll take what you're selling and getting stressed about. That's what they love to see. What I'm interested in, so we drew this buy box, by the way. I moved from down here to up here, not because I'm interested in this line that it's currently sat at, but I thought, okay, this is a good area to potentially grab some if we do dip down to that 10-cent mark and slightly under it, because I do think if we do get to that 10-cent mark again, we might have a small wick like we did in here on the 20th, 21st September, just dipping down into that 9-cent area, or certainly the high end of it, and then before a big, a correction back upwards. But I'm liking this move because it's still in a good consistent pattern. It's coming into this sort of pathway here that you see this slightly blue dotted line. That's just me emphasizing the moves both in an upward direction and downwards, and where we're kind of trying to see if we can get a little crossover occurring in this area to push us back in the momentum of being up in this channel that we drew previously. So it's very much, I think, in my opinion, the next 2-3 days going to be really critical to decide what we're doing with XDC in terms of stabilization and moving in an upward direction. I'd be extremely surprised if we dipped down here and pushed ourselves even lower, albeit that we did have this current buy box down here somewhere, because I did sort of think to myself, okay, 8.7 cents is still a possibility, because we had this very nice applicable rise here and here, but you could argue that there's not a gigantic amount of support in this area. So my thoughts around that 8.7 was merely deriving around this kind of movement here, the resistance we saw around here as well, and these areas too. So it kind of stands as a still potential valid point. But I think what's nice to see is this gradual movement downwards. We've reacted nicely and we come back down. We're still just hanging in there, trying to make sure we don't force ourselves back down here and just keep that momentum of a nice trend line. When you pull charts out, you really do start seeing, where we've come from. And it's really positive, in my opinion, for XDC. Of course, we want to see it higher, but we've got to be realistic. We want to see a nice, healthy movement chart. And I think XDC does that along the way. We had the previous all-time here up here at just under 20 cents, I think it was. Let's just confirm 19.52. So we've got a lot of movement left. In particular, I think that this in the next couple of months or so will be pushing that all-time high, and certainly into price discovery mode. Absolutely. Let us know in the comments below what you think the price point could be for XDC at the end of this year. Very interested to know that. But yeah, generally the next 2-3 days I think are really interesting to see if we can really confirm this level and start moving this up, because you can see arguably 20th of October potentially, but certainly the 21st of October is an opportunity for us to try and push up. That was rejected. We're coming back down to test this previous level of 10.5 again. So this is very interesting area, and the battle is still commencing. So it'd be interesting. The selling output here is very much sort of reflecting that we're supposed to be essentially waving off here, but you can see quite clearly in this aspect. I'll just draw this back up here a bit so you can see what I'm talking about. We've had this nice sort of pale pattern going on here, but today is quite interesting because it's almost like the last kind of forceful push to try and bring us down to the 10-cent mark. But what's clear is over this week's period is this momentum pushing up, and I think that's just a credit to the people that are very obviously bullish and pushing volume as much as they can to keep it up in this area. The MACD has had some good wave areas, as we've kind of covered in this analysis here, is the sense that we want to see this obviously narrowing a bit more, but you can just about see between yesterday and today thus far, this line is sort of moving gradually this way, so it could indicate that we are slightly widening. So that's why I'm interested in this area here, the buying opportunity. And there was an argument where I had previously had this buy opportunity down at the 8.5, 8.7 sort of mark. But I think just generally consensus of this movement of the chart at the moment of XDC is going in a positive direction. It's this area of interest that we suggested, trying to cross this bit over. So the RSI sat at an opportunity around here, around 38. Now, when people say like, in terms of that aspect, what's a good entry point? Well, I think that if you're getting in these sorts of areas, you're essentially got a damage limitation for one. That's not to say that it won't come down, but you're reducing the risk of, having a potential massive loss. So obviously, if you're buying up here, then you'll be pretty stuck because you're on the way down here. You've got quite some time to try and break even again. So it's good kind of areas. Again, it's not financial advice, but I think these kind of areas, whether it be at 8.7 cents or 10 cents, in the long run, these prices are going to be next to nothing when we look back at these historic points. I think anything XDC wise under $1 for the future, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, that's kind of where we are with it right now. So like I said, just to recap, next 2-3 days in my opinion are really interesting to see if we can solidify this area of support at 10 or just about 10.5 cents, and then we can start pushing up to try and get to that 11 cent mark and beyond. So we're still far away off the all-time high. We're still far off our previous levels of resistance and support mechanisms up here, around the 13 and 14.5 cent marks as well. So there's plenty of movement left in the tank for XDC. Let us know in comments below what you think, and also let us know what you've been thinking about this XDC potential FUD going around and potentially being a scam coin and all of this stuff. I want to know your thoughts and what you're doing with XDC. Are you holding it for long term, short term? What's your plans? Are you staking? Let us know what you're going to be doing with that as well. Guys, we'll wrap that up there. Thank you so much for watching as always, and we will see you in the next XDC update, hopefully in the next couple of days. If anything critical happens, we end up jumping potentially down to these lower areas, I will do a quick fire 2-3 minute video just to cover that aspect as well. But until then guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next XDC video update. Bye bye.